Imagine you're thinking about installing solar panels on your home. They can help lower your electricity bill, but they're expensive up front. Now imagine the government offers to pay for 30% of that installation cost through a tax credit. Will more people decide to go solar? This is exactly what happened in 2006 when the US government introduced the Solar Investment Tax Credit, or SITC. Since then, solar installations have grown by an average of 76% each year. But while this policy appears successful, economists ask an important question. Do the benefits of subsidizing solar power outweigh the cost? To answer that, we need to understand one of the most important tools in economics: supply and demand. Economists often study how markets change using a method called comparative statics, rather than watching prices change minute by minute. Comparative statics compares the market at two different points in time: before something changes, after something changes. And these changes could include a new government policy, new technology, rising incomes, or changing consumer preferences. The goal is to see how these events affect the market's equilibrium, the point where supply equals demand. At equilibrium, buyers purchase exactly the amount sellers are willing to produce. When either supply or demand changes, this balance shifts, creating a new equilibrium. Let's begin with demand. A demand curve shows how much consumers are willing to buy at different prices. Sometimes demand changes even when prices stay the same. Economists call this a shift in demand. Several factors can cause demand to increase. First, income. When people earn more money or receive a tax refund, they often buy more goods, like cars or solar panels. Second, consumer preferences. If people become more environmentally conscious, they may decide they want renewable energy, increasing demand for solar power. On the other hand, if new information makes a product less attractive, demand can decrease. Third, the prices of related goods. If the price of one product rises, consumers may switch to a substitute. For example, if one soft drinks becomes more expensive, buyers may purchase another brand instead. When demand increases, the demand curve shifts to the right. The result, a higher equilibrium price, a greater quantity sold, and if demand decreases, the curve shifts to the left. Both equilibrium price and quantity fall. Now, let's look at supply. Supply represents how much producers are willing to sell. Several factors can shift the supply curve. One is production cost. If wages or raw material costs increase, producing goods becomes more expensive. If businesses supply less, causing the supply curve to shift to the left. And another factor is technology. Imagine a factory introducing advanced robots that build products faster and more efficiently. Production becomes cheaper, allowing companies to supply more goods. The supply curve shifts to the right. Supply can also change when new firms enter the market. More businesses mean more products are available. Finally, producers may choose to sell goods in different markets if they can earn higher profits elsewhere. That reduces supply in the original market. When supply increases, prices fall. Quantity increases, prices fall. When supply decreases, prices rise. Quantity falls. Markets become even more interesting when both supply and demand change at the same time. Suppose consumers receive a tax refund. They now have more money, so demand for cars increases. At the same time, manufacturers adopt new robotic technology that allows them to build cars more efficiently. Supply also increases. What happens? Well, both changes increase the quantity sold. So economists know quantity will definitely rise, but price is harder to predict. Higher demand pushes prices upward, and greater supply pushes prices downward. Whichever effect is stronger determines whether prices ultimately rise or fall. Now imagine both supply and demand decrease. Quantity will definitely fall, but once again, the direction of price depends on which shift is larger. Finally, consider a situation where demand increases while supply decreases. This time, economists know one thing for certain: prices will increase. However, the quantity sold could increase, decrease, or stay about the same depending on the relative size of each shift. This is why economists often say that the market outcomes depend not only on the direction of change, but also on the magnitude of those changes. Let's return to our original question. How does the solar investment tax credit fit into this model? The tax credit lowers the effective cost of installing solar panels. As a result, more households and businesses choose solar energy. This increases demand for solar installations. Companies that install solar systems may respond by hiring more workers, expanding operations, and increasing supply over time. As supply grows, installations cost may fall because of improved technology and greater competition. The result can be an even larger solar market. But economists don't stop there. They also ask whether taxpayers receive enough environmental, economic, and social benefits to justify the cost of funding the subsidy. This idea is known as evaluating economic welfare. A policy can increase demand while still raising important questions about efficiency, fairness, and long term value. The solar investment tax credit is an excellent example of how government policies can influence markets. By encouraging consumers to adopt solar energy, the subsidy significantly increased installations across the country. At the same time, it provides a perfect opportunity to study how shifts in supply and demand affect prices, quantities, and market equilibrium. Understanding these relationships help economists evaluate whether policies achieve their intended goals and whether the benefits outweigh the cost. So the next time you hear about government subsidies, taxes, or new technology, remember that they all have the power to shift supply and demand and reshape entire markets.